We've all been on YouTube and we know there's information out there on just about anything you can think of, and 3D printing is no different. You can find an endless list of videos about starting and running a 3D print farm, and sometimes it's hard to tell which videos I should listen to and which videos I shouldn't listen to. Everyone has their own opinions on what the first thing you should do is or what you should focus on when you're just getting started. Well, I'm no exception. Every day I give out my thoughts on how I do things or how I would do things if I was just starting out. Welcome to the channel. If we haven't met, my name is Sam. I run a 3D print farm from underneath my garage. I post content in and around running a 3D print farm, and on every video I post, I ultimately always get comments like, claims he's a top 1% seller but doesn't share his shop. How dare he? If he was so successful, he wouldn't be making these videos. He makes more money from these videos than he does 3D printing. Yeah, because I'm just rolling in the cash here. I actually just got one before I started to film this video. His Etsy mistake was using the platform, and now he's trying to YouTube. Lol. So funny. Well, spoiler alert, I don't make more money from YouTube than I do my 3D printing business. To be honest, I kind of wish I did.
Oh, I wanted to see that. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
But ultimately, I don't blame people for writing these comments. There's a ton of people on YouTube whose whole strategy is fake it till you make it. So today I'm laying out what I made from my 3D print farm in 2024. And for all you naysayers and keyboard warriors out there, I want to do a bonus and also include my YouTube revenue. So stick with me till the end and you'll see my revenue, my expenses, and my profit. My revenue is really broken down into two buckets. In bucket one, we have retail sales. This is gonna be places like Etsy, Amazon, eBay, any place where I sell kind of direct to the customer. Our second bucket is going to be wholesale / contract. This is gonna be any sort of work where maybe I'm printing 100 units of something for somebody, or it could even be like a bulk order of a lot of our product. That would fall into the wholesale contract bucket. So for my retail sales side in 2024, I did a gross of $125,048. That was all from Etsy. I didn't sell anything on Amazon or eBay. So that is completely all driven from Etsy sales. On the wholesale contract side, I didn't do much, but anything I did do in regards to that, I ran through my Shopify store, and that ended up being $1,341. So for our 2024 gross revenue, we did $126,389 in 2024. But we do have a business to run, and there are lots of expenses to run this business to ultimately generate those gross sales numbers. So I'm gonna break down all those expenses into about 4 buckets. Just know there's a lot of expenses, but if I did it line by line, we'd be here all morning or afternoon, or I guess whenever you're watching this. So our first bucket that we're gonna talk about is our COGS. This is our cost of goods sold. This is gonna be anything that is directly related to the manufacturing and creation of the product to fulfill orders. So this will be things like supplies, which will be like filament, boxes, things like that, which totaled $12,139. It's gonna be 3D printing expenses or printer expenses. It's gonna be, if I need to buy a new printer, depending on the price point, maybe we just write it off as an expense versus a capital expenditure. It's gonna be any of our maintenance items, hot ends, tubes, things like that. So for 2024, our total there was $1,508. All of our sales that we make obviously need to be shipped out, so our shipping totaled $15,128. And then finally, obviously we did most of these sales on Etsy, so we have platform fees. So we're going to do fees, and the fees totaled $15,400. $47,481. So this brings our total COGS to $44,256. Our largest other single expense is our advertising. First of all, I can't spell. So if you're gonna get up in arms about that, you should probably just move along now. Most of what I write here is going to be misspelled. Our total for advertising was $28,213. Most of that, almost nearly all of that actually, is going to be from Etsy ads. We don't really do any sort of outside advertising. We've dabbled with Meta every once in a while. Ultimately, I always end up back on Etsy ads, and it just really produces well for us, so we just kind of stay there. Our next expense is gonna be anything that kind of helps us run the business and that we need to be in business, but it can't actually be like directed straight to the cost of goods of the product. The different things that would be included in this would be things like our Fusion 360 software, our Shopify monthly fee for having the Shopify store. It would be our Canva fee, our Everbee, all those monthly sort of subscriptions we have, our internet service, stuff like that. We'll call these fees ops expenses, and the total for that for the year 2024 ended up being $6,017. So we can do some quick math here. Not in my head, did this already, but if we do some quick math here, we can see our total expenses for 2024 ended up being $78,486. That was everything that we paid to keep the business going and to fulfill all $125,000 or $126,000 worth of gross orders that we received. All right, home stretch. We can do some simple math here and we can get to our net income, which ended up being $47,903. In 2024, my 3D print farm, these 13 or so printers behind me, netted me $47,903. We grossed $126,389. We had total expenses of $78,486. So then we ultimately netted $47,903. So one thing to note here is this number technically is EBITDA, which is earnings before income tax, depreciation, amortization. So taxes will come out of this, but depending on your unique situation and what my unique situation is, what you pay in taxes is gonna vary, and I like to be transparent with you guys when it comes to these numbers, but I kind of do draw the line where we start getting into my other personal financial situations that aren't relevant to the 3D print farm. Now, there is one number missing from my expenses here, and that's labor. When I price my prints, I do take into account labor, and I build that in to the price of all my prints. Speaking of pricing prints, if you guys didn't know, I actually am the creator of 3dprintforce.com. We launched a 3D printing pricing tool about a year ago. However, version 2 of that pricing tool is about to launch and go live probably this month. So if you did not get lucky enough to be in our V1 launch, check out 3dprintforce.com. You can add yourself to the wait list for our V2 launch, which, I mean, it's awesome. It has so many functionalities. It supports multi-material, multi-part, multi-color printing, does all the math for you, does the labor, does your other supply fees, anything related to the production of that printed part. 3D Print Force can help you track and make sure that you're profitable. So if you want to get it on V2 as quickly as possible, go add your name to the wait list. Right now, I am the only employee and I do pay myself via W2. I'm not going to get into why I pay myself W2 or what amount I pay myself W2, mostly because I'm not qualified to get into that. I do have an accountant that helps me figure that out. But ultimately, the business had a net income of $47,903. So ultimately, since I am the only employee and I do own the business, that is available to me if I wanted to take all of that out of the business every year. But of course, there would be tax implications depending on how much and how I do that. My ultimate goal is to replace myself in the print farm. And to be honest, $47,000 isn't a huge salary. and it would probably take all of that, if not a little bit more, to hire somebody full-time to replace me. However, the print farm isn't running at 100% capacity right now, and it isn't a full-time job to run the print farm right now. So if I were to hire somebody whose only focus was the print farm and they dedicated 40 hours a week to the print farm, I'm pretty confident the revenue would grow, ultimately leaving some leftover net income in the business for myself as the business owner. That's the dream. We're not there yet, but we'll see what happens. All right, bonus YouTube revenue time. For all you trolls out there that think I'm just raking in, I guess more than $47,000 a year off of YouTube, now's your time to shine. Let's get into it. Similar to the 3D print farm, my YouTube revenue is broken up into a couple different categories. So the first big one is AdSense. That's the revenue I get from just views on YouTube and advertisers paying for, you know, their ad spot that YouTube shows before, in the middle, or after the video. The second thing is brand or sponsorship deals. And then our third income line that I attribute to YouTube is the affiliate. Again, spelling, not my strong suit. So for 2024, my total in AdSense was $2,675. My total for brand and sponsorship deals was $976, and my total in affiliate was $868. This brings my total rev to $4,519 on the whole 2024 year. So $4,519 in revenue. However, YouTube is a side sort of activity for me, and I can't dedicate a ton of hours to it. And I learned pretty quickly I'm not a good editor, and that's not the best use of my time. So I do pay an editor, so we gotta account for that expense. Editor costs for 2024 totaled $1,455. This then makes my net from YouTube $3,065. So $3,065. Is it nothing? No. I'm very appreciative that this is a net gain activity for me. However, what's not included in this is any of my labor to do this. The writing of the script, the filming it like I am now, the sending the files to the editor, the uploading to YouTube, the dealing with the comments, all that stuff, right? I'm essentially doing that free for right now because I enjoy doing this and I want to. So yeah, all those comments that say I'm doing this because I failed at 3D printing or it's because this is where the money is, shut it. There you have it. That's what a real 3D print farm generates in revenue. Now, I'm sure there's guys out there that are blowing me out of the water with the revenue and they're killing it. Great, I'm glad they are doing that. However, I would challenge you to find somebody who's being more transparent with their numbers than I have been. And let me know in the comments, do I have any credibility to be making these videos about 3D printing that I'm making? Or are all the trolls right?